If there's an Olympics in adaptability, Filipinos would sweep the silver and gold medals.
Somehow, I do not really relax in my own country because I was born in the Philippines, but because my mother was close to me, and I didn't learn how to speak the languages. All I knew was how to speak the Tagalog of the children.
The word is survival, is not adaptation. Other nationalities also go there, not knowing the culture. You have to go with the flow. It's a matter of life and death, survival din.
Ang araw ng katwiran na sumisikat sa silanganan. Itinuturo. Sa mga matang malaong nabulagan ang landas na dapat tunguhin. Itinuturo ng katwiran magkaisang loob. Itinuturo ng katwiran magkaisang isip. Itinuturo ng katwiran magkaisa na maihanap ng lunas. Panahon na lumitaw ang liwanag. Panahon na lumitaw ang liwanag.
I'm Joel Vega. I'm a writer and a visual artist.
My name is Tita Lacambra-Ayala. I'm supposed to be a writer and a poet, a writer of short stories and a poet and a painter all at the same time, and also a mother.
One advantage would be you survive, you can even excel if you blend into a foreign culture. You somehow expand your knowledge because you learn new skills.
The adaptation, I think, is positive. Because as long as we don't overdo it, and as long as it doesn't lead to crime.
The disadvantage would be you might lose a part of yourself in the sense that you had to give up a certain way of thinking.
All the OFWs, they're happy, and they feel that they're able to have their families, happy in the country also. They're so patriotic on their part. Well, I think it's a good thing to be globalized.
Do you know that the biggest Filipino migrant community in Alaska are Filipinos? So even in Alaska, in such a cold, barren place, there are Filipinos. And also there's another island, I forgot the name, somewhere in Scandinavia, Northern Europe. There are Filipinos there, together of course with Chinese migrants. So I'm just amazed how we easily adapt into our new environments.
From Baguio, where the people were mostly Ilocanos. So I'm also pure Ilocano. So I spoke the language with my family. So when we came down to Manila, it was difficult because I didn't know a word of Tagalog. When you learn a new language, you might try to understand it in the way you have your background, what your background is.
The first and foremost thing that drove me to work abroad, the adventure. I was open to experiencing new things. I wanted to travel.
I'm an adventurer, and I'm always curious. Any new experience is a new adventure for me. A change in status is a new adventure. There are challenges, you're supposed to meet them.
I am in favor of the adapting because it gives you something in return. It widens your perspective. It can also push you into new territory, and in doing so, you enrich your experience.
I don't know if I'm resilient, but I know that I always want to survive the weather. I cannot swim, by the way, so in the water I cannot survive.
Adapting or adjusting, to me it's second nature almost, because for journalists, you really have to be flexible when you deal with people, when you deal with circumstances, because one day is different from the other.
We're a normal country, but we're just more intense than anybody else. We're more intense Because we had too many desires and dreams. We were running after them.
Preparation is important because it somehow diminishes the problems that you might encounter later on. As a journalist, it's a instinctive kind of thing. So I felt that, you know, I had to read a lot about the place, ask people about it.
Let's look at all the OFWs in all the parts of the world. They're so, they're part of the scenery. They just fit in. They're supposed to be resilient.
I was befriended with some Muslims. I had close friends, and he was working in a recruitment company with domestic helpers. So I met, you know, these people in my everyday routine. So I asked the domestic helpers what they think of, you know, working there. I heard a lot about the horror stories, and as a journalist, you know about these horror stories, but from another viewpoint. And I realized that if one is naive, you could end up in serious problems.
Working in Manila was mostly for my own good, for my own survival. Good to study. And writing was the only thing that made me earn money, because that was the only skill I knew. And I found out I could be paid for it. So, second year of high school, in college, I started to work for papers.
You don't evolve politically if you don't go back to what had happened in the past. So you had to confront it before you can go to the next stage. So we do have this trait to adapt, but at the expense of something else.
My father was a veteran. He has been discharged, and he found a job in Manila, so we went down to Manila. It was up to me to catch up, to learn the language, and survive. Because I wrote in the high school, the yearbook, they asked you what's your ambition. I said to be a writer, and I was stuck to it. When I write, you don't have to see me. It's just there. You'll meet me there. In poetry, you have to excavate yourself. It goes deep. Mostly the heavier things in life, more spiritual. Do not necessarily have physical existence. It's all so internal, mostly internal. Also, it's a matter of transcendence. Let's say you had a very unhappy life and you write very good poetry. You've transcended the poverty and the misery that you've gone through. And it has crystallized into something beautiful. Then when martial law arrived, that's when I started to concentrate on poetry. And the first book was Sunflower Poems. Only 350 copies. That was all I could afford to pay, because it was all. I had to pay for the sewing mostly, because the material is libre. From that I wrote in Iho. My husband was the scientist of Iho plantation. I wrote a lot in Iho. I just compiled them to put them there. There's a two back-to-back book eh. Camels and olives. One is part of poetry. The first portion is mostly autobiographical. One half is prose. That's local. We were living beside the sea. But it was not a bamboo house. It was a regular house like this. We had transferred from Manila to Davao because when we left Manila, it was martial law. And there was no food in Manila. And when we went to grocery, we had to fight over the last can of tuna. I loved it here. Love at first sight. Just the sea. You see the sea. Wow. The children were practically grown up. Joey had finished high school. The second boy was a special child. The two girls were in grade school. The youngest was grade 1.
They always left me.
They helped me to grow. They helped me to develop my social life. So many different temperaments, and you have to adjust to all of them. You have to cope with all of them. You have to be strong. I like they appreciate what I do for them. They like my cooking, they like my baking. So encouraging about when they eat the food. So you have to discover other things. You endeavor to look for other things that will please them. Well, we always encourage them to do. When they come up with something good, we always praise them. Well, we draw them up, I have more children because the artists were always coming to Davao, also feeding them. I don't know how I manage my budget. I was able to feed a lot of people. When I was in Davao now. The distance gave me the perspective, the necessary perspective and the necessary critical attitude towards my work, to assess my work if it was good enough. I started writing poetry. I was mostly a short story writer. I had short stories every week, printed every week. Free Press, Sunday Times, Chronicle. It was 50s, 60s, 70s, up to martial law. In fiction, you have to be more concerned with physicalities, environment, people, sensual things, what you can see, what you can hear. The difficult thing is how to make them come alive. What do they look like? How to describe them? So you have to give them flesh and blood, to give them quality of voice, mannerisms. The short stories I like the best. I like it best because it came so easily. I think it included a lot of my experiences as a child. Riding in the back of a truck, living in the sea, and my growing up years when I was very interested in sex, intimations of sex. I have a grandmother. Her name is Benigna. She was my grandmother, aunt of my mother. She was the hero of my first book of fiction, Pieces of String, and she took care of us, myself and my siblings. Well, if a first person, yes, myself. I was my heroine. I love the bird. That's my favorite story. Even the language is so flowing. You put very little effort into it, just came out.
Siya na lang.
In 1977, stayed in an apartment downtown near the hospital, near Davao. That's where Lord Mars was born, in Quirino Avenue. There were so many poets who were never published, and they came to me and showed me their poetry. Sabi ko, ano magagawa? Why don't you give them to your school paper? Bigay naman namin binabalik. Don't you give them to... There were no magazines here. They have no access to them. Magazines in Manila, or they're too shy. They got attracted to me. And also, I knew their problems, so we understood each other. Because I was in the same place. At a certain time in my life, I was like that. I was wanting to be printed. I wanted to be recognized. I wanted to communicate. I wanted to see my stuff in black and white. They trusted me wholeheartedly. Sabi ko, just give it to me. Akong bala. Most of the role models were paintings, no? The painters became my friends, and they sometimes I would design the covers, and then also I was doing the layouts. So they would give me painting materials. Ito naman ako. It's mostly visual and the materials are different. Almost in nature. There is no reality without nature. I painted on the dining table at night when my husband was asleep, when the children were asleep, and everything was so quiet. The place was mine. Usually I painted after dinner, up to morning. I didn't stop until I finished 2 or 3. Cheapo lang naman, mura lang. That's what the first issue. And the second issue. And then NCCA offered to print. People still come to bring their things to me. But the last one I have now is just my own. I want to print my own roadmap. I'd like to sing my birthplace before I die, Ilocos. So we had a van. We drove all the way to the Cordillera Mountains, to Ilocos country, ganda-ganda. But I couldn't find anything that I wanted to see. It was good to know that everything was just a memory.
And that's mommy. Ayan po, yan po. Same, actually parehas.
My mother was a nurse, as a company nurse for the Corporation of American Miners. I met a man who fell in love with her, and she had me. She went to Ilocos to my grandmother, and she had me in Ilocos, in the house. So I was born there. Father naman was a disciplinarian. She's an army man. My mother, she was in Antamo, in Baguio. The Americans wanted entertainment during the weekends. They would have parties and programs. She was asked to sing. So the music of my mother represented art. In Baguio, I was only 11 or 12. It was after the war. We had no money. And then the GIs came around asking for people to clean the streets. So my grandmother and I went with them. In high school, I was the advocate, the newspaper of FU High School. And when this advisor, my English teacher, who always read my manuscripts and who always encouraged me, always praised the way I wrote. She never recommended anything. I had to find my way through. I read what I could. I used to live in Sampaloc when I was a student in UP and in FU in high school. I used to walk from Sampaloc to Florentino Torres, where I worked with in Women's Magazine and Sunday Times. When it was possible, I had too many adventures. All sorts of teenage adventures. And also I started my career there, my writing career. That's the one that has pushed me through to where I am now. And we had started the workshop in his house. Well, it was a concert hall in the old UP. And this wife would serve us ginger tea, salabat, and sumang. And she will bring a manuscript to be read. Someone of us would read this manuscript, and then we would all criticize it. I'd like to live here all my life and doing what I please and listening to music. Because of all the things that my husband left me, the only thing I really value is his collection of CDs, classical music. My husband, I met him in 55, after graduation. We got married in 56. I was working in Los Baños as a press officer in agriculture. As an agriculturist, he couldn't decide what to do with his life. First, he was in an advertising agency, and he got tired of that. He worked with Nick Joaquin in Free Press as features editor. Then the U.S. Embassy hired him as cultural officer. After that, he started to paint. Then he was winning short story prizes. He was writing fiction. All of a sudden, he refused to write because he discovered painting. When he retired, and he already bought a place in Tagum pala. And a big studio, very big studio full of paintings. He refused to sell his paintings. Now we have so many paintings, we cannot sell them because there's no signature. I like the Philippines. I won't go anywhere else. I don't want to live anywhere else. In the first place, I cannot stand winter. Even in Baguio, I lived there so long, but I never made friends with the climate. My sister's living in Virginia. She's been there up to now. 1995, I went in a late summer. Flowers all over the place. Under the shadows of the buildings, coming down on the ridges of the mountains, on the road, the highways, ang ganda-ganda. I felt like a princess. Sabi ko, oh, so welcome for me. I enjoyed the galleries, the Metropolitan Museum and the Rockefeller Foundation. I loved those things. Those things you see only on magazines with colors. All of a sudden, they're as big as life. And then I wanted to sleep there. I asked my sister, could I sleep here, bring a cot, and I sleep here beside this Van Gogh. So there were still Filipinos. They still eat lauoy, and they were still frying bangus. They were ordering their bangus from Davao by air. So that's what we eat. Sabi ko, uwi na ako, may bangus naman kami dun. Presko pa.
Dahil dun sa kayo dahil taas ng buko. Oo. Hindi.
They offered to help me. I did not want to go. No, never. I thought there was too much work to be done here.